Okay, hi everybody. We're back for our second live stream of the day. Thank you for joining us earlier when we talked about Lee's vouchers getting declared unconstitutional. This administration does a lot of unconstitutional things, as we're finding out lately. And today we're going to talk about another lawsuit that they find themselves in. They are no strangers to these, and Governor Lee's administration has a very bad track record. We are tnholler.com, at the TNHoller on Twitter and Facebook. Follow us, subscribe. We are independent journalism site. We survive on your small dollar monthly donations, so all of that really helps. Thank you for your support. Today we're talking to Charlane from the Equity Alliance and Pooja from Lawyers Committee. How are you both doing today?
Wonderful.
Doing good.
Yeah.
So the bottom line of what we're talking about today is we are in a pandemic, and during a pandemic, people shouldn't be coming together to touch the same thing repeatedly and being close to one another. There was an amendment in the legislature proposed by Gloria Johnson to have emergency vote by mail for everybody, which seems to be the obvious thing to do. It seems to be something that shouldn't be a partisan issue. We just saw that Wisconsin had an election where 52 people, supposedly now maybe more, contracted the virus there. So I'm going to start with you, Charlane. First of all, tell us a little bit about the Equity Alliance, which I think most people that follow us are probably familiar with, and then your history with Secretary of State Trey Hargett.
Yeah, so the Equity Alliance, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit based in Nashville, but doing work statewide around civic engagement and power building independent Black political power in the state around issues that matter to Black folks, basically. And we use our voting power as a mechanism to achieve economic and racial equity in the state. So that's why we focus a lot on voting rights, because our rights have always been suppressed in this country, and we got to start there to make sure that we have a voice in this democracy. So we've been around for about 3 years. We're going on year 4 now. It'll be 4 years in November of this year, and we've been rocking and rolling. One of the things you may know us for is the Tennessee Black Voter Project. Back in 2018, we launched that as a way to get more people involved in the 2018 midterms, because it was an exciting race. We had Marsha Blackburn versus Governor Bredesen on the ticket, and people really wanted to come out for that. And we were able to register 91,000 people across the state. And that was something that really hadn't been done before in Tennessee. And our state legislature thought otherwise. So they, passed a law called it was a voter registration criminalization law, basically, that would have criminalized groups like mine to register voters in the state, and would have had a chilling effect on democracy. But thanks to the Lawyers Committee, we were able to fight that bill off, and it got repealed just this past, maybe 2 months ago, maybe, I think just this year it got repealed. So all of those aggressive measures that were in the law got repealed by a judge.
So that wasn't just a repeal, that was an excoriation. Trey Hargett got taken to the woodshed over that. And so Pooja, so you guys have a history with that voter registration criminalization bill, which was a direct response to 91,000 Black voters, or voters. It wasn't just Black voters, but the Black Project registering voters. Now you guys step in. Pooja, tell us about the Lawyers Committee and how you factor in here.
Sure. First, thank you for having me and having us, Justin. So the Lawyers Committee, we're the national branch, and we're based in Washington, D.C. We have a very strong, obviously, legal arm where we work with, powerhouses like Charlane and the groups, local community groups in different states, and provide technical assistance and legal help to these groups to really fight back when there's nothing else that they can do. And so I always describe legal action as a last resort. We bring legal action when organizing and all the other different types of engagement have not worked. And so our involvement in Tennessee is we Lawyers Committee obviously has the legal arm, but we then also have an organizing arm, which is called Election Protection. And we lead the Election Protection Project in mostly all 50 states, with a cohort of more than 100 to 200 national and local partners. And
Mhm.
so I personally, I'm an attorney with the Voting Rights Project, but I do a lot of technical assistance from the organizing end in Tennessee. And I also provide legal support when it comes to that. And so we at the Lawyers Committee have been working in Tennessee since I think the early 2000s, when we first helped the NAACP bring a redistricting case. And so that relationship has expanded. We've obviously started working with other groups now. Equity Alliance has been one of our major allies in the state. And, as you know, they do such impactful work across the state. And Charlane and her coworkers are responsible for that. And so our involvement in 2019 came about when Charlane and some NAACP and Sekou Franklin of Democracy Nashville, who are all local activists, sort of brought it to our attention that there was a bill that was being basically railroad, right? Like passed really quickly in the legislature within a matter of a month or 2 months, that criminalized voter registration and basically placed onerous criminal and civil penalties on groups like Charlane's, who just were going out and registering people to vote. And so we thought that that was extremely burdensome, violated the fundamental right to vote, violated their First Amendment right to associate and express themselves, and violated their First Amendment right to speech, because there was one provision that basically said criminalized any kind of public communication regarding voter registration. And so it was just the vagueness of this law and the impact on disproportionately African-American groups and African-American voters that led us to file a lawsuit on behalf of the Equity Alliance, the NAACP, Democracy Nashville, and the Andrew Goodman Foundation. And we ended up getting a favorable ruling in the preliminary injunction stage. And then lo and behold, the legislature ended up repealing that law and replacing it with another law, which we are vigilant about and are, with the help of Charlane, who's obviously on the ground there, we're monitoring how that plays out. And so, that's sort of been my involvement in Tennessee. Most recently, the Campaign Legal Center and the Lawyers Committee are working together to sort of expand, the vote by mail regime and the system in Tennessee to respond to the COVID-related emergency right now.
Right. So that issue, the last issue, the voter registration criminalization, their first version was struck down. Now they have a new version, which seems to be a little more toothless, but still pointless, and clearly a direct response to the work that you did in 2018. My understanding about that is they never really talked to you about it. You had the directives from the county, from the election commissions to turn in every form, and then they turned around and punished you for that. We're not going to get into that right now. Let's talk about voting in a pandemic. Republicans seem to want more people in fewer locations. That seems to be their solution. That was what they initially proposed in response to the tornado that hit Nashville. They basically said, we want to be able to combine precincts, which is the exact wrong response when you're in a pandemic. Now we're in a pandemic, and they don't seem to want to do anything to protect people. Charlane, what was the run up to this? And when did you make the decision, you know what, we're going to go ahead and sue?
Yeah, I started getting calls early on about, what are we going to do about our elections from different just associates, colleagues, partners, even nationally, like, what are we going to do? and how are we going to respond? And initially, we were still in like tornado mode. We still have a whole campaign with Don't Sell Out North. So initially, I was like, well, I don't know. I can't focus on that right now, but I know we got to do something. And then it got a little bit more serious when, you know, time went by and it looked like, okay, we're going to be in the house for longer than we thought. So we talked about, you know, how do we advocate? Like, what does that look like? Do we, where is the levers of power where we can get some sort of, you know, opportunities to vote? In conversations with Governor Lee, you know, we sat in on a call with the State Election Commission that they had. They had their normal meeting and we sat in on that call. It wasn't even on the agenda of like, what's the plan to, you know, respond to the COVID crisis. So someone even had to like bring it up in the meeting. And so that just kind of lets you know where their mindset is. Like, getting them to take this pandemic seriously is like a challenge.
Well, let me ask you this though. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that that's them not taking it seriously, or do you think that that's them seeing an opportunity in doing nothing? You know, I wonder if they're thinking, okay, you know, we just do nothing and it'll deter people from voting. And we all know the unspoken truth is the more people that vote, the worse Republicans do in elections. So, you know, this sort of played right into their voter suppression tactics and hands. And, you know, I guess I just sort of don't believe that they don't take this seriously. I think that they actually do, but they're seeing it as an opportunity. Is that something that you want to engage on at all?
Certainly don't want to think that our elected officials are sitting around playing politics with people's health in their lives when literally people are dying. Like, this virus does not discriminate rich, poor, black, white, immigrant, or whatever. It is coming, it is in our communities, and it's hurting Black folks a lot. Like, in the South, Black folks are dying from this because of the underlying systemic racist, you know, health inequities that we already have in this country. And so I would hate to think that they are doing that. But let's just be real, like, this virus is really causing and impacting all different ways of life right now. It's causing us to change the way that we, you know, work, the way we play, how we interact, how we as an organization organize. So what makes it any different for our elections to not be impacted? Like, we have to do something. If we're going to make measures, take precautions around businesses, we also need to do that for our elections as well.
Absolutely. So Pooja, what does this lawsuit say? What's the ask? What's the demand? And what are the chances of success?
Yeah, so we're basically asking for a court order to first expand the vote by mail system and make sure that all eligible Tennessee citizens are able to vote by mail. Tennessee currently has, it's an excuse only absentee ballot state. And so you can only vote if you qualify under one of 13 very narrow excuses. If that's not expanded, then obviously a very small percentage of the population can actually vote by mail. And as Charlane said, that this virus is so different, the fact that it can be transmitted from person to person through respiratory droplets, the fact that it can, you know, survive on a surface from between 3 and 7 days, right, and doesn't even need a human host. That's what makes this a novel situation. And we've looked into the actions that multiple other states have taken, and you know, you have Alabama, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, their governors, their secretary of states are all expanding their vote by mail processes. They've issued executive orders, they've issued, you know, secretary of states have issued directives saying that, hey, we are gonna allow everybody in the population to vote by mail and check one of the current boxes, or say that, you know, this is a COVID pandemic, therefore they should be able to vote by mail. And so, the ask in Tennessee is simple. It's, if all these other states are doing it, why don't you do it? Right? You have the power. So that's one thing that we're asking for. We also have identified that Tennessee provides no cure process for signature verification, and so so what happens is, in the absentee ballot process, normally in Tennessee, under current law, elections officials have to compare the signature on an absentee ballot with the signature that is on file for the voter, and basically say, is it a match or is it not a match? And if it's not a match, then they reject that ballot and they send a notice to the voters. Now, many other states have a cure process, meaning that if a ballot is deemed with a signature to not match, then there's some kind of process for the voter to then be able to cure their ballot and vote.
So here they can just throw it out.
Yeah, I mean, presumably the law is not clear on that. And so presumably they can throw it out without, they send the voter a notice. Under law, the elections officials are required to do that. But other than that, there's no procedure, there's no process, there are no guidelines as to how an election official should use their discretion to actually declare a match, because we all know that signature matching is a very even in the criminal justice space, right? Like, signature matching is not a science, it's an art.
No,
and so
that's, I mean, I don't think my signature has ever been the same twice.
exactly.
So,
Like, I write good. Like, when I'm at restaurants, I notice I write real good when I'm signing at repeat. But at home, not so much.
I mean, I'll just draw a line on there half the time. Yeah, that's rough. Okay,
Right.
so is there like what is like the law that you are pointing to that says they need to fix this? Is it in the Constitution somewhere? Where is it?
Yes, so it is in the federal Constitution. All the claims are being brought under the United States Constitution. We're saying that, by not providing a process, the state is violating the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which is the right to procedural due process that is recognized, by the founding fathers, right? For the fundamental right to vote, we're saying that in not expanding the absentee ballot, the current statute, that is going to burden the fundamental right to vote of Tennesseans, which is protected under the First and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution.
Well, that seems to make sense. But we're not the only state that doesn't do this. So wouldn't other states be doing this? Shouldn't there be some sort of like joint lawsuit amongst a bunch of different organizations and states rather than just us? Isn't there sort of a bigger case to be made here that could be Supreme Court level?
I mean, absolutely. Go ahead, Charlane.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, potentially. We don't know how far, if they were to appeal, depending on the ruling, it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court. It would affect, precedent for all 50 states. But the problem with I shouldn't say it's a problem, but the difficulty with our political process is that all 50 states, are left to craft their election laws in the way that they want to. So that's where it gets sort of muddy and leaves it up to interpretation, because number one, Tennessee laws are different from, say, Kentucky's or Alabama's or Georgia's. But even in Tennessee, like, we leave all 95 counties to decide how they run their own elections. And so we don't have consistent ways that we go procedurally about our elections. Right. And our Secretary of State sort of defers that power to county election commissions to decide for themselves.
Right. Everybody defers to everybody. Governor Lee defers to Trey Hargett. Trey Hargett defers to the county commissions. I've called 2 election commissions in Tennessee, Williamson and Wilson, and they all say different things. But the thing that they both agree on, which I sort of am empathetic with, is that this would take time. So it seems like, we have a primary in August. Mm-hmm. Like, every day that passes that we don't take the measures to do this it's going to get harder and harder. Is this about this election? Is this about August and November? Or is this about the next time we have a pandemic, having these processes in place?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important for, at least state officials to recognize that currently there are no processes in place for a pandemic, and hopefully we never have a pandemic ever again. Nobody
Right.
wants that, it's miserable. But we have to think about it now, right? And the processes that hopefully come out of this case will serve us in the future as well. Maybe push the legislature to enact something, right, that's specific to a pandemic. And then, just to piggyback on what Charlane said, and to answer your question about other states, Justin, Tennessee is not being singled out. There are lawsuits in multiple other states. Texas has a lawsuit. South Carolina has a lawsuit, right? North Carolina now has a lawsuit. I mean, it's happening all over the country because, again, this is a new frontier, and
people are scared.
People are scared. And, we have community groups that are coming to us and saying, hey, what do we do? Our people want to vote. How do they vote? We have two plaintiffs who have either health issues, severe health issues, or take care of elderly family members. They are not going to be able to vote in person because they do not want to infect their family members. So
all in that category.
See, Charlane, I just think, I mean, you're kinder than I am. I just really think the people that we're dealing with see that as a feature, not a bug. I mean, I don't think it's even a question. And, they can sit back on their ideals that they claim to have, but that I don't think that they're very committed to. But at the end of the day, I mean, they have said this stuff out loud. They have said that they believe the more people that vote, the worse it is for Republicans. Donald Trump said it on Fox News like less than a month ago. So, the only way that we get things like this done, which you've already shown, is by suing and by taking it to the courts, and which is exactly why they focused so much on the courts and tried to pack the courts and put so many judges in place to make the decisions that are in line with what they want. But this one in particular, it seems pretty clear. I just, I don't know. I'm hoping you guys feel good about your chances here. It seems like it shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's unconscionable to me that somebody would want power so badly that they're going to send people to their doom and destruction, or use it as a threat or a guillotine hanging over people's heads. It's outrageous. But I also think like you never go broke underestimating people's hunger for power. And, I'm really skeptical about any appeal to their better angels.
I don't put nothing past them. I mean, it's the levels that they will go to make sure that they maintain power. Because let's remember, we're moving to a majority minority country, and they are concerned about, losing their status as, whiteness being the end all be all and the top of the hierarchy when it comes to our human race. And so what we're seeing with all these, even like the pandemic protesters, it's like this realization that we're losing our freedoms, and we need to react in such a way that make sure that we don't lose our way of life. It's all this anxiety around losing their way of life, and anything they can do to hold on to that power, it seems like they will do it. And we need to exercise every tool in our toolbox to make sure that they don't take advantage of, our government.
Well, I'm grateful that you all are doing what you're doing. I want to ask, like, as a last thing, I don't want to keep you guys forever, but as a person, it would never occur to me to like sue. like I just wouldn't feel confident enough to be like, you know what, I'm going to sue and take it to the courts and go through this whole thing. Like, you've done it and won now. Does it take a lot of, like, what's that feeling like where you're like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to sue their pants
this,
off.
Justin, this government belongs to us. They work for us. And this is what we have to get people to realize. They don't own government. We do. We pay taxes. And so there are three branches of government. There are the courts, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. We don't use the courts enough because they've been able to get away with this stuff for so long. And nobody's holding them their feet to the fire. And we're going to do it. And what we've known from 2018, they don't prepare. They didn't prepare in 2018 when we had a competitive race and we dropped thousands of, paper forms on their desk. They didn't prepare when we warned them. And so they're showing the same pattern here. And so we're trying to get ahead of that to say, look, prepare for August and November. You have all the tools. You've been granted the money from the federal government and you still have HAVA money. You have the resources. Stop sitting on your ass. Just stop. We wouldn't have to sue you.
I like it. Well, I appreciate that you're doing it. I'm rooting for you. How can people help? Can people help? I've called Trey Hargett and Mark Goins and left messages probably close to 10 times in the last 3 weeks. I just keep calling them and I keep telling their people, I'm going to keep calling. They don't call me back. I'm not surprised by that. They are aware of who I am at this point, but I'm also a citizen. So that's not that cool, frankly. Do you expect them to engage on this? Do you expect them to try to ignore, what do you expect from them and how can people help?
I'm interested to hear from, poll workers who are planning to work the August and November elections. I'm interested in hearing from our elderly and disabled population, anyone who has, an underlying condition, anyone who might be fearful of going to vote. I'm looking to hear from you. We need to amplify your voice because we need to make this thing real to them, that there are more people than they think out here who are afraid to go vote, myself included. I am in that category. My son has asthma and I'm not about to step out this house to expose him to that. So, we're all in some way impacted by this coronavirus, and I'm interested to hear those stories. But also, we have a petition on our website. You can go to theequityalliance.org, sign that petition. That's how we're letting people know that people are concerned about voting. So the more people sign it, we can turn those names in to Secretary Hargett and their legislator to let them know, look, you got people in your district that are concerned about this. So we can take those names and call your legislator. They go back into session June 1, and they need to hear from you that this is a concern that they need to be debating on the floor. So.
Well, okay, we will pass that word on. Pooja, do you have any last words for us before we let y'all go?
I just think that this is such a clear nonpartisan issue. And it's been said over and over again, it's not about Democrats, it's not about Republicans. It's Lawyers Committee is nonpartisan. And we just think that, this is an obvious easing the restrictions that are currently there to, under this pandemic. It's just the most obvious thing to do for state officials, and it shouldn't be that hard.
On that note, I see just a couple of comments here. I see Monroe Relford saying mail-in or electronic voting can be done. This is 2020. I agree with him there. And then Lauren Sorensen says we need to engage all the pregnant women out there who are scared to put their babies at risk. I want to say, anybody who's watching this or who watches this after the fact, if you're afraid to vote for some reason or another, make a video on your phone, tell us why. Send it to the tnholler@gmail.com and we will make a supercut of everybody telling us they're afraid to vote and why. And then we'll send that to Trey Hargett and Mark Goins. We'll put them up one by one. We'll make a supercut of them. Yeah. Make a video, the tnholler@gmail.com. Send it to us. Are you afraid to vote? Tell us why. And we'll help try to get the word out and we'll send it to Charlane and Pooja and the Lawyers Committee and Equity Alliance. Follow them on Twitter, like them on Facebook. Appreciate what you guys are doing. Please stay in touch and let us know. I actually wore this hat earlier because the vouchers got knocked down. I hope to wear this one more time. If you guys can expand emergency vote by mail to everybody, that will be another good day.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys coming on here. Stay in touch, okay?
Okay, thanks so much, Justin.
Thanks, both of you.
Okay.